Kiss me and I'll be strong. What could I do when I know that you are here to help me along? Yes, faith can move mountains, darling, you will see. I can move mountains if you have faith in me. If you have faith in me.
Well, hello, folks. A good July 4th to you all, Independence Day. I wish you a safe, a content July 4th. You know, the ideals of this great country are awesome. The ideals. Just like Jamaica, where I'm from. We had a motto said, out of many people, one. Which I came to realize is the very same that America has. E pluribus unum. And that means we're one, we're equal, we're all the same. We're obliged to look out for one another. We're obliged to love one another. Not easy all the time, but that's our job. So we are a great nation in the pursuit of the ideal. So it's in progress. A lot of work to be done here, folks. A lot of work. And as we know, there's a lot of pain and suffering coming from various angles. And I'm one of these people that was always obliged to bring a little levity. So I'm levitizing you all, as well as myself. So we just played a song. In fact, is it still playing, Miss Cat?
I think it's
Play it up a little.
I stopped it, sorry.
That
over?
Start it again, please.
Okay.
That is a song called Faith.
Continue on.
The trumpet player is none other than the awesome late Roy Hargrove, who did me the gesture, playing a little solo. The singer is Monty Alexander. Something I never did in my career. Hardly. I did a little here, a little there. I remember people saying, you know, you should keep singing, keep singing. And I chose to try to sing on the piano notes. So this is going to be an album at some point where I've done various vocals that are touching to my heart. Faith Can Move Mountains, introduced by the one and only Nathaniel Adams Cole, also known as Nat King Cole. Now when I'm a Jamaican and I say Nat King, it's come out Nat King Cole. So that's Nat King Cole, that's Monty Alexander, right? So Faith Can Move Mountains, featuring Roy Hargrove. That's the first music to play on this program. You know, I had a lot of relationship in my heart and then personally with the Cole family, the family of Nat King Cole. I recorded with Natalie, his beautiful daughter. I was on that big hit record called Unforgettable. I played piano. I went to her home because she heard that I knew all those great songs. And I went to her home and refreshed her memory about her father's music. And indeed, I went to her home and I sat with this lovely lady and we went through about 20 songs because I remember the introductions and what Nat played, you know, on the piano. And after seeing Nat King Cole in Jamaica in 1956, and that was a big part of inspiring me to want to be a musician and play piano, I later on had the wonderful friendship with Nat's youngest brother. And that man was taken from us recently by the circumstance of life passing on, right? Freddie Cole, my dear, dear friend, went ahead a few days ago. So we miss Freddie. I won't get to see him again, sad to say, in this earth. So I'm thinking of Freddie. Say goodbye, Freddie. Have a journey home, a good one. These songs are a reflection of your family, what your big brother did. And I was honored to work with you on many occasions. I remember when I did a show at the Blue Note some years ago, you joined me and you sang songs of your brother while I presented a jazz Tonight with Love, it was called. So that was a moment of music combined with a lamentation about the loss of a friend. Okay, so now another great individual that was about the beautiful music, which is what Nat King Cole and Freddie Cole exemplified. His name was Johnny Mandel. And Johnny Mandel wrote some awesome songs. Emily was a song of his. That's Emily. Emily. He wrote another song called A Time for Love. He wrote Close Enough for Love. Songs I played. These songs came from movies that he wrote for. I met Johnny Mandel and spent some quality time with him. And what I'm going to play now is a song that he wrote called The Shadow of Your Smile. It was from a film called The Sandpiper. And I'm going to play a version of it where I am playing the piano, and my brother, my great brother, my talented, gifted brother, Larry, a Vietnam vet, guy who went through some stuff, if you know what I mean, but is a prince of a human being. He is in great shape. He's a peaceful guy living down in Florida. He's being extra careful at this time because the virus is moving around, you know. So I'm going to play now with the assistant, my dear number one love, Miss Katerina. She's gonna roll The Shadow of Your Smile.
Can we let the people on Facebook know that I'm gonna disconnect after this and reconnect because they're seeing the screen vertical and it should be this way. So after we Larry, we'll be right back.
Well, wait a minute. If I go like this, would that? You know what I mean? Then I'll be straight up, right?
Yes.
How about this side? No?
It's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So here's Larry, our favorite brother.
My brother.
The shadow of your smile when you are gone will color all my dreams and light the dawn. Look into my eyes, my love, and see all the lovely things you are to me. A wistful little star was far too high. A teardrop kissed your lips, and so did I. Now when I remember spring and all the lovely joys that love can bring, I will be remembering the shadow of your smile. was far too high.
My brother.
A teardrop kissed your lips, and so did I. And I remember spring, all the lovely joys that love can bring. Baby, I will be remembering the shadow of your smile.
Well, folks, I hope you don't mind, but I had to hear my brother singing that song because I really loved his interpretation. And Shadow of Your Smile. So we lost Freddie, we lost Johnny Mandel, and we've been losing a lot of beautiful, precious souls because of the COVID-19. So stay safe, be careful. Now I'm going to talk about the world that I came to when I came to Miami, Florida a little bit, and then New York, and musicians that I met that were part of the history of why this music is so rich. I'm going to tell you about a lady that's one of the great premier pianists from Pittsburgh. She was Mary Lou Williams. And Mary Lou Williams, I had the honor of meeting Miss Mary Lou. I was playing at Gilles, this is 1963, 64, and I would run up to two different clubs that were right nearby Gilles on 52nd Street near 8th Avenue. And I'd run up to Birdland where I could see John Coltrane, or I could see Miles Davis or Horace Silver or the Duke Ellington Orchestra, and then run back to my job at Gilles, which was this popular place where a lot of show business people came, celebrities, and of course number one of them all was Mr. Frank Sinatra. All right. But there was another place called the Hickory House. And at the Hickory House, where they served the best steaks and rich, good food, you would see people sitting in that restaurant occasionally. Duke Ellington would be sitting there having his steak all by himself, quiet in the corner, and enjoying the atmosphere. And performers that would play at the Hickory House, among them were Dr. Billy Taylor, beloved Billy Taylor, who was so valuable to us all. Then Don Shirley, and that was the subject, this man was the subject of a film that came out recently called The Green Door, I guess that's the title. And it told a little incident when Don Shirley went down south and there was all the prejudice he was dealing with, which was where a lot of the prejudice big time was and still is in many ways, right? In very many ways, most ways. So the Hickory House was a real popular place for people to go, and that's where Mary Lou was playing. And I met her, and she was working with Bob Cranshaw, the great bassist who I knew, Mickey Roker on drums, and I'd go in there and sit there for like 20 minutes because I had a half an hour break. And once or twice she'd invite me to sit in. Now Mary Lou didn't like the piano that was there. I remember the restaurant owner, Mr. Popkin, right? She wanted him to buy a new piano. And she knew that I had this uncanny, I wouldn't call it talent, but I would tend to break strings on the piano because I played notes that were ping. I must have done what you call a karate chop with the notes, and strings would break. I noticed that was happening. I had to tone down on my attack because, one of the things about piano playing, for me, that was a priority, was to get a sound out of the instrument that was your own. It just came to me naturally. So people say, Monty, when I hear you play, I know it's you immediately. And it's not because I played that notes or those notes, but it's the sound I get. And one of the sounds I get comes from a clarity of how to play the chord, whatever that is. I hear that sound and I play that sound. But before I got that sound, I was hitting too hard. Bing! And I'd break strings. Mary Lou used to get me to say, go break some strings. I said, yes, Mary Lou. Why? Because the club owner said, man, that piano got to go. It's not up to par. And yes, indeed, she liked me because not only I played in a way she liked, that's got the understanding I had, but I could break them strings. And they eventually got a new piano for Mary Lou. And there are a lot of anecdotes. She was a very religious woman. She had a big crucifix right here in her area there. And she was very religious, and she got very inclined towards the Catholic religion, but she was a swinging piano player. I remember enjoying her very much. Pittsburgh brought the greatest musicians. If you want to talk about people from Pittsburgh, and not just musicians, but that area presented Henry Mancini, George Benson, my buddy. Yep, I know George from the 60s. The great Mr. Ahmad Jamal. He is from Pittsburgh. My wonderful acquaintance and man who I've worked a lot with was Ray Brown. Ray Brown, right? Gene Kelly, the great dancer in the movies. Errol Garner, Stanley Turrentine, Tommy Turrentine, a slew of people. Kenny Clark, the great drummer. So Pittsburgh, rich as ever. And Mary Lou was this awesome lady. Now, I'm going to tell you about another musician friend that I got very friendly with. He was the singer with the Duke Ellington Orchestra, late 30s, early 40s. And I met Herb Jeffries. That's his name, Herb Jeffries. He's from Detroit. And Herb was a light-complected gentleman, right? He had African heritage, among others, and Irish and Italian. We got to know each other quite well. In fact, I had the pleasure of visiting his home up there in the Idlewild, California, right above Palm Springs, when it was snowing, and I spent a few days at Herb's place with his wife, Savannah. Herb passed away just when he was just about to become 100 years old. Herb had the big hit record with Duke Ellington called Flamingo, ba ba bee 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 bee. That was his big hit, Flamingo. But he decided that he wanted to do something quite unusual. He noticed that a lot of young people wanted to be cowboys. Like as a kid, I would go to the westerns and sit there and dream that I was riding my horse, you know, and shooting the bad guys. And it was an imaginary thing. And Herb talked about how he never saw any black Western heroes. And that was grossly missing, because it was really true. There were a lot of African American people. There were some of them, the slaves that escaped from their horrible situation, and they were out west taking care of the cattle, the cows, and yes, there were cowboys. And he decided he wanted to go and be a Western hero, and as a black Western hero. And indeed, he worked with a movie director. They put these films together, and he became known as the Bronze Buckaroo. That certain color is not black or brown, it's bronze. Or like Duke Ellington had beige. We have black, brown, and beige. You know, it comes at a certain stage, at a certain age. Okay, we won't go there. But the main thing is, Herb Jeffries had this dual career as this incredible singer. What a voice. I wish I had a recording to play for you right now. It was a baritone, and he was singing the same songs that Nat King Cole sang and Billy Eckstine sang. And Herb was up in Idlewild, where they have a little jazz festival that I understand is going along really fine. It's a beautiful area.
Want to play Flamingo?
Yeah.
And that way, I told people go watch you on YouTube, because I'm gonna they have the things turned around on Facebook. They're watching you.
I'm like this?
Yes.
What was wrong with that? You know, you ever heard of the Leaning Tower of Pisa? Is that in Italy?
Okay. Okay, guys, I'll be right back.
Well, this is Ellington from 1941 or something.
It's with him.
Flamingo, like a flame in the sky, flying over the island to my lover nearby. Flamingo, with your tropical hue, for it's you I rely on
we're back now.
Herb Jeffries, ladies and gentlemen, one of almost forgotten greats of years gone by. And Herb was quite a special individual, and a lot of people remember him for both the vocalist with Ellington as well as the cowboy, the bronze buckaroo. He would wear a 10-gallon hat, you know, when he was in a wheelchair, and his voice was still powerful. And Miss Herb. So that's something about Herb Jeffries. A gentleman wrote to me by the name of David Vicari. Now, rarely I don't comment on the people that write, but he asked me to tell him about Gene Harris. You talk about, we used to say greasy, you know, because when Gene played piano, you could smell the grease, meaning that's another way of saying he was funky, he was swinging, and Gene took his church experience of what the music of the church and combined with various other origins. I think he was a big fan of Errol Garner as well, but Gene came up with a sound that if you didn't tap your feet when you were listening to his music, something was wrong with you, right? And Gene Harris, I got to know very well even from the 60s. We played in Newark, New Jersey at the Key Club, and he was a part of a combo that was very popular, made albums on Blue Note called the Three Sounds. Andy Simpkins was on bass, and Andy recorded with me on several occasions. What a swinging bass player. Bill Dowdy on drums. So Gene Harris, beautiful brother, he ended up in Boise, Idaho, married a lovely lady and spent his later years there, and he passed away. I mean, everybody passes away at some point, so hey, what you gonna do? Part of the deal, right? Okay, something about Gene. And now here is another man that I was involved with. We became really great friends, and I played with him on many occasions, recorded with him several albums. I'm talking about the great vibist Milt Jackson. Milt Jackson took that vibraphone set that he played, which are these metal bars, and it's a gentle sounding instrument. You got to mic it well so that the sound comes out in clarity. And he made that thing simmer. It was like smoldering. The way he played it, it was so soulful. People would scream when he would be playing his solo, because it was like, you know, there are some albums he did with Ray Charles, and when Ray stopped playing and Milt took over, the flow of energy stayed the same, you know. All right, so a little about Mary Lou, Herb Jeffries, Gene Harris, Milt Jackson. I'm going to tell you about one more individual before I go on to another subject. This was Ernest Ranglin, who is alive and well in Jamaica, and he's not traveling around. None of us are traveling around right now, but Ernie is about the meanest guitar player. And George Benson heard a recording I did, and he said to me, "Man, who's that guitar player? I never heard anything like that," because Ernest had a way of making the guitar talk. I mean, talk. Les Paul, who everybody loves, if they don't know deep jazz, they know Les Paul. Les Paul thought the world of Ernie. They had jammed in the 50s when they met, and they became very fond of each other. So anyhow, Ernest Ranglin, we're in touch, and one of these days maybe we'll get together, play a song. But we made quite a few albums, some of them straight ahead jazz, and some of them coming from the roots of the rhythm of Jamaica. Ernie was big time responsible for a lot of the popular music that came out of Jamaica. He put the sweetness in some of the harmonies, and just improved everything. Took it up several notches in terms of listenability. You know, when he did all the Scatterlights, and Ernest, he was playing with Don Drummond and those guys. All right, enough about that. Love you, Ernie. So you see, right about now, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit of what you call showbiz as I put on my Jamaican shirt. I'm going to put on my Jamaica shirt because in my mind, I'm going to Jamaica. I'm leaving the shores of America. I'm going to take it to Jamaica. Take it to Jamaica where the rum come from. The rum come from. The rum come from. This was one of the tourist favorites way back when, right? All right. Got my Jamaica shirt on. Now I'm going to show you something that I received from an incredible drummer, a friend, a part of a combo I had back in the early 70s. It was Monty Alexander, John Clayton, the fantastic bassist, swinging and played the bow melodies that made you cry. It bring tears to your eyes. I remember sitting there listening to John. He's right there playing, and the tears want to come. So that's the beautiful musician. The drummer who gave me this item, this is a Jamaican, put it in your pocket kerchief, right? When you dress nice, and it's all about my Jamaica. Jamaica this, Jamaica that. Rio Grande, Kingston, the policeman, pineapple. Maybe there's a mango here somewhere. I don't know. But there it is. So I'm well Jamaicanized right now. All right. So, in terms of Jamaica and the beautiful memories, I had a friend in Jamaica College where I went to school. Fervent Opus. Among others, this man's name is Baron Dyer. Baron is a Floridian now, and he has a very noble assignment. He works for a foundation that is looking out for the autistic children. A very admirable, important work he does. The foundation is in the name of Dan Marino, the football quarterback that used to play with the Miami Dolphins. Right now, you know, we grew up in Jamaica with soccer, not American football. But I know enough to know that the quarterback is as valuable as they come, especially when they're great quarterbacks, such as Dan Marino. Now, what this leads to, when I told Baron, my friend, that I knew a certain football player from Pittsburgh, almost like a third brother. That's how I felt towards this man. We met in a jazz club where I was playing. I'm speaking about the great Franco Harris. Franco Harris, who was a part of what they call the Immaculate Reception. he was the great, look, let me just say, so Franco, he was the running back. I'm not sure, see, I don't know my football like I should, but when I met Franco and we kind of became friends, he said, hey man, I want you to go to the game with me. Okay, we're going to meet Sunday, we're going to go to the game. And I'm getting ready to go to see the game, the football game. Guess what? We go to the stadium in Pittsburgh. That's where that's where we met. And it was to see the Pirates. We went to the baseball game. It was a shock. I said, so Franco and I went to the baseball game, but he would come to the gig when I was playing at the Encore in Shadyside or Walt Harper's Attic or wherever the job was in Pittsburgh. So they came, he and his friend, another member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mean Joe Green, they came to Miami, and lo and behold, they had an extra time, and they came over to my mother's apartment, and my mother served them some coffee, and we sat around and gabbed, and you know, they were big fans of another Pittsburgh person who was the wife of my brother Larry. Her name was Phyllis Hyman, the great singer. So they came, maybe they were going to see Phyllis or meet Larry, my brother. But I was there. We had a lovely afternoon. Franco and Mean Joe Green, and I think there was another one of the players. That was the team that Terry Bradshaw played with, Joe Gilliam. Okay, Pittsburgh Steelers. My game of choice is boxing. You know, I always love boxing. So now I want to turn the page to a little more Jamaican references. I have another friend from JC, Jamaica College. His name is Teddy Smith, also known as Vidal. And if he's watching, I greet you with good vibes, Teddy. Teddy lives in the town of Port Antonio. And Port Antonio is an idyllic place that captivated a certain famous movie star. When he came there in his yacht, the boat was headed for another island, perhaps Cuba, and it blew off course because there was a fierce storm, something almost like a hurricane. This man, who was one of my heroes on the screen, was the great swashbuckling actor, Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn could do no wrong in terms of being on the screen. He did the swashbuckling movies. He was Robin Hood, one of the most wonderful films ever made. And he did the westerns and the dramas. But Errol fell in love with Port Antonio. He was from Tasmania, near Australia, and Errol Flynn felt he was back in Tasmania. This is what I heard when he saw Port Antonio, and he said, I'm staying here. And he bought a home, and his wife came, Patrice Wymore, who we met when he did one of the movies they did together, got married, and their daughter, the daughter named Arnella. I met Arnella back in the 60s when she and her dear friend at the time, who became Miss Jamaica, lovely, beautiful Cindy Breakspear. So the Flynn group was very influential, and they made Port Antonio a more popular place because they talked to some of the local people and said, you know, you can spruce up this and you can fix that up and you can do something called rafting down the Rio Grande, the name of the river. And Errol Flynn talked about, you know, you can build these rafts and the people can come there and pay a certain payment and they can get on the raft, and somebody that knows how to go down the river can take them down the river, and that would be a lot of fun, right? So Errol Flynn unfortunately fell victim. I say this very sad to have to say this because you don't want anybody to fall victim to it, but he had a rough time with alcohol in Vancouver when he went to sell his boat. Now I know these things because Errol Flynn was somebody I was fascinated by, this handsome guy on the screen with the sword, and in real life he had a womanizer of great proportions, they say, and he was actually the first guy to popularize Jamaica. That not long after that, there were people like Noel Coward, the great composer from England of popular songs, and then also around that time, maybe a little earlier, Ian Fleming came to Jamaica, and that's where he wrote most of the James Bond books, 007. Jamaica has been a real magnet, right? So it's a pleasure to talk about Port Antonio, a place that I want to go visit. When all this dies down, I want to get down to Port Antonio and swim in that area, me and Miss Cat, right? And am I talking too much today?
No, man.
Okay, because I'm on a roll, I'm talking a lot. So I want to do something that I never did while I talked.
Uh-oh.
You hear my accent, right? I have this accent because I used to tone down the accent, and my mother used to say, you know, Monty, when you go out among the people here in New York or in Miami, wherever we were, says, try not to speak like a Jamaican, because if you speak like a Jamaican, you won't be as fortunate if you sounded like an American. Now that was an unfortunate thinking process that my mother had, but she was typical of a lot of people that come from a foreign country. You want to fit in, you don't want to be noticed as different or less than. So I went into my accent, and I remember going to the movies, and I went home and I'd stand in front of the mirror and I'd act like one of those cowboys on the screen and say, hey man, you better be careful, buddy, because if I catch you looking at my wife the way you did, I'm gonna knock you out, buddy. So just listen to what I have to say. I'm not kidding, you know. I could do that. Of course, I didn't talk in such terms, but I'd be with the musicians in New York, and I'm saying, hey man, what's happening? Hey, good to see you. Hey, you know, or in Harlem, hey, what's happening, brother? I was able to adapt to all the different social groups, and it wasn't a difficult thing because I'm all these different variety of people. I'm out of many one, and I like the phrase I once heard, wondrous variety. I don't even know what great-grandfather was, where he was from, and it didn't matter to me, honestly. So I'm going to read a little, putting on my specs. This is a book that I enjoyed as a kid, written by a marvelous humorist, Charles Hyatt. He was one of these funny people telling stories. He and a woman named Louise Bennett became the folk queen of Jamaica. Miss Louise Bennett, they call Miss Lou, and she tell you the whole Jamaican story. So now I'm going to go down into the dialect a little more, right? And I don't know if you'll be able to follow me, but I take great pleasure in reading a little essay from When Me Was a Boy.
We should put subtitles
What do you mean?
when you speak. Oh, the Jamaican who are watching can translate.
Okay. So fasten your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen. I'm now going to read one of Charles Hyatt's stories. This one, some of us can identify, especially when we remember as kids that we would wet our beds. You know what I mean? You know, wet your bed mean, right? You can't hold it, and you can't get to the bathroom in time. What happened? You know, you wet
all
your
the
bed.
stories.
What's wrong with that? It's real life, right?
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
So this is it. When me was a boy, little boy, me did used to think that when I gone to bed and drop asleep and start dream, if anybody look in at the bed, them wouldn't see me, for I would have gone through the bed down into my dream. You see, I did figure that you got down into your dream because I always hear big people say that you dream when you're in your deep sleep, down deep sleep, and you lay down to sleep, and when you finish, you wake up. So it did stand to reason, my reason, that you go down in your dream and you come up out of it. This is Charles Hyatt, right? So what used to make me fret is if mama did come in my room while I was gone down in my dream, if she wouldn't know how to find me because I was down in the dream. You can't find me, My punishment them days when I misbehaved was to wash me up and put me to bed no matter what time of day. Just to spite them, me used to shut my eye tight as soon as them put me in the bed so that I go sleep quick and start dream so that them can't find me. And that's how I used to get my revenge. So that's a little part of Charlie Hyatt when me was a boy. And by the way, he talks about just life in those years, in the kind of a lot of it in the late 40s. And then when he was a little kid, everybody from Jamaica should own one of these books because this is some rich, when if not your life, your father or mother or grandfather, grandmother. This is it. Charlie talk about life in Jamaica as a little boy. We don't say little. Americans say little. British says little. Jamaican say little. The T became a K. A defining word about accents is, I use the word water. British people say, may I have a glass of water? Americans say, hey, I'd like to get a glass of water. Jamaicans say, I want some water. Water became a defining word. Okay. So, thank you, Charlie Hyatt, for giving me a lot of laughter with your book. Winding down today, I wanted to tell you about a very special person that comes from Rome, Italy. Her name is Caterina. Caterina Zapponi. And then she got this other name, Alexander. So for a good many years, I've been journeying through this life with my number one person named Caterina Zapponi Alexander. And she comes from royalty of the film world in Rome, Italy. Her father, Bernardino Zapponi, and he wrote many scripts for the great filmmaker Federico Fellini. So her dad, Signor Zapponi, worked for Fellini. Great films. And I would like to have the honor of introducing her. And that water is for you.
It's for you.
Oh, I'll have a
I
sip.
figured. And you know something? I'm gonna have
It's
to
not
move.
vodka, ladies and gentlemen. It's water.
I'll move the chair in.
You're going to move this year?
I'm gonna move the chair.
Okay.
And
Hey,
then-
by the way, before you do that, you always said to me, tell the folks
yeah.
about my Waurika Hill record. Is that next song,
Yeah, go
Waurika
ahead.
Hill? Ladies and gentlemen, some months ago, there was a record release. Monty Alexander playing the songs of the music of Thelonious Monk. And believe me, I took Thelonious Monk to a place completely different to what anybody else have done. Everybody, all the musicians trying to do their own thing or pretty much verbatim do what Monk was doing when he had his combo, Charlie Rouse saxophone, and I took him to a place that I knew would not be strange if he was still alive, because he grew up in an area of New York after he came from North Carolina that was filled with West Indians. So him hear the calypso music on the radio, on the records, and I took him to the roots of Jamaica and the influences of rhythm. We say in Jamaica, Riddim. And this is now the vinyl that just came out, which I will be honored to autograph. It's called Waurika Hill. It is only on my website, www.montyalexander.com. Let me say that again. This LP is available only on my website. It's www.montyalexander.com, and you can get an autographed copy. No, that's a
Because it's on your
shameless.
website. It's easy to get.
That's a shameless commercial, right? But I want you to know, because people have been asking for it, and we already received it. Even in this time, we got it going with the post office pretty good. We're mailing these albums, the vinyl, to people coming from Europe, all over the place, and we're happy to send them to whoever would like to get a copy of Waurika Hill, which was the name of the hill right next to my house, where all the Rastafarians would go to praise God in their mind. It was Jah, and smoke some ganja too, you know. And that's the concept, Rasta monk vibrations. Enough said.
I'm playing the thing.
So now comes, here's an example. This
Here.
is one of compositions of monk. It's called Rasta monk vibration. This one is called Rhythming or Rhythming. Wonder. You know, when Monk would be performing, there were some videos, he'd get up from the piano and start dancing. He'd be dancing to this, and it was like he would be dancing to a, what we call one-drop reggae rhythm, you know? And that's just like if you saw Bob Marley dancing on stage, it was like the wild man from the forest. Monk, same way. They had that common way of moving the body. This is Monty playing a piano solo. Waurika here. And on this record, I choose to show the oneness of it all, because to me, the great rhythm of all time is the heartbeat. You hope you have a steady heartbeat, and that's when it's really grooving. You get that in swinging jazz, what we used to call swinging jazz, when you pulsate. Now I'm going to go to the 4/4 swing. This is Wayne Escoffery, great tenor man who was raised up in the UK. His family is from Jamaica. Yeah? Okay. So there is Mr. Monk as, well, according to Monty Alexander. Right. Thank you. Now, back to the Roman situation. Katerina is here to bless us with a couple of her songs that she loves to perform, and I've been able to play. And take a sip of my, not
Take
vodka.
a sip and I'm gonna rearrange.
Not tequila, but
Because I realized the
H2O.
last time I came next to you, you couldn't see me. So, not that people really should see me.
They should.
But if I sit here, let's see. See if
So,
can you see me?
by the way, this is the 14th session. And I remember in the first time around, I was approaching, I realized this thing is getting to be more like what I'm called reality show.
Yes.
It's reality because we're real, less of the put it on and talk. No, I made little notes of what I was going to talk about, but I'm getting more what I call real.
Yes, I think you can see.
So here's
Hey,
Miss Cat. How you
long
doing,
time
young
no
lady?
see.
You all right?
I'm alright. You?
Looking good, as always. Them
The
nice.
crazy hair. Sorry. Hair used to be short.
But that's fashionable these days.
I
The
guess.
ladies them got here, over there, over here. Back.
My hair is as long as yours.
I'm calling my Harriet Jackson. Okay. So you
We said about Bernardino.
tell me about Bernardino, your daddy.
My daddy was a scriptwriter. He was a very intellectual guy.
Yes.
And he was a great guy.
Well, I like that man a lot.
Yes.
He was special. for
He
me.
was a great guy. And one of the things I remember, because it was summertime, we'd go to our version of Jamaica, Capri. So
Seaside place,
I
right?
remember the seaside and going to Capri with mom and dad, and the beautiful, beautiful Capri before a lot of people discovered it. I mean, it was a different place. If you go now, it's not the same Capri.
Yeah. Whole heap
But-
of people.
yeah.
Lots of folks.
And the funny thing, my dad was claustrophobic. Like, he loved Capri, but the idea of being on an island
Freaked him out.
used to make him know, what if we get stuck on? So he used to just stay for like a few days and leave. But that was his favorite place.
In other words, it was
to
like,
go.
y'all got it, right?
He didn't like the mountains either. Same
Yeah,
idea. I was like,
yeah.
oh, we're stuck in the mountains. So anyway, he was quite a
But
funny
he worked
guy.
with that great director, Mr.
Fellini,
Signor
yes.
Fellini, all these great films. What are the movies he did? Tell me.
He did 7 of the scripts, starting in 1967 with what's that called again? Tre passi nel delirio in Italian. In English, it's called Spirits of the Dead. That's a cheerful title. Spirits of the Dead. and then which was a collaboration of Louis Malle, Fellini, and what was
Roger Vadim.
Roger Vadim.
You told me that.
That's right. And they each had to choose a story from Edgar Allan Poe and put it on. And my dad loved Edgar Allan Poe.
That guy gives you nightmares when you read
Yeah.
the book before you
Yeah.
go to sleep.
Yeah,
Mr. Poe.
yeah, it does.
What
But then
about-
he did Clowns,
Clowns.
Satyricon.
Satyricon.
First he did Satyricon, then I think it was Clowns, then Casanova, Roma first.
Wow.
Fellini, Roma, then Casanova, and then City of Women, and I'm forgetting a few, but there's
And you
seven.
told me the great story when the great lady of women's liberation came to.
Germaine Greer, when
Germaine
Fellini
Greer.
went to see Germaine Greer.
He went to see
He used
her.
to tell this story that everybody wonders if it's true. But yeah, he wrote a whole book of his memories with Federico, which is fascinating read, and it's only in Italian and translated in French.
You
One
know,
day I want to translate
Something
it in
I
English.
read and realized that all the great film directors, filmmakers in America, all over the world, they look on Fellini as one of the champs of how to make a movie in a certain way. And I think among them is Martin Scorsese,
Yeah.
who did these great movies, and Robert De Niro worked with him, and
Well,
Leonardo
it's very
DiCaprio.
dreamscape, you know. It's dreams.
Okay.
It's not necessarily linear storytelling, but it's like when you're having dreams, and that's why a lot of people are confused by Fellini, because it's not linear story. I mean, he has some films
know
that
what?
are linear, but
Don't explain it now, but I have no idea what linear mean. I'm going to have to look it up. Linear.
meaning following a certain logic.
All right, okay.
A, B, C, D. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the thing here, you said you would do a song.
Yes, and I love this song because it has the island of Capri somewhere in there.
All right.
So, and we're thinking of Freddie Cole, and I think he sang that too.
Freddie sang it.
And he was such a beautiful ballad singer, everything singer. So,
Okay.
and remembering my dad and Capri.
So, what's it called?
It's called Tender is the Night.
Tender is the Night. I'll
I was
figure
like, I
some.
forgot what song we do.
I'll figure out a few notes here. Okay.
Yes. Tender is the night, oh, tender is the night. There's no one in the world except the two of us. Should tomorrow find us disenchanted, we'll have shared a love that few have known. Summers by the sea, to sailboats in Capri, these memories shall be our very own. Even though our dreams may vanish in the morning light, we loved once is slender, how tender the And this is from from a film. They wrote it for the film,
Wonderful.
which is from the book, which is, keep going
Oh.
back to intellectual people.
Cool. That was very cool. Now that other Italian song I heard you sing that I love, the old Neapolitan song, Torna.
Torna Sorrento. This also goes back to Capri days,
Here we go.
because we used to stay in this lovely place. Was called La Brunella. It used to be La Brunella. Now so it became like a super high class place. But when we stayed there, it wasn't that. And the
Okay.
guy name was Vincenzo. And Vincenzo, the owner, he used to say Video mare quanto è bello, which is the beginning of. So my dad and him used to keep it about Video mare quanto è bello, because
Okay.
see how beautiful the sea is.
Okay, so I'll give you the introduction as usual, right?
Video mare quanto è bello, ispira tanto sentimento, come a te che tiene a mente, che ascetato fai suonare. Guarda qua che sto giardino, niente siesti sciure arance, un profumo così fino, dinto cuore se ne va, e tu dici parta addio, tan lontana da sto cuore, da sta terra dell'amore, tieno cuore e non tornare, ma non me la sa, non dai me sto tormento, torna sorriente, fammi
Wow. That's kind of mean. You know what I
That's a
mean?
beautiful song.
It sure is. It sure is. Hey, you know, talking about Italy and Italian stories, I'm thinking of an Italian lady, American Italian. Her name, Liza Minnelli. And why I'm telling this now is because I had a certain incident with this particular lady, and I was playing with my group at a place called Mikkel's. Mikkel's was up at I think Amsterdam or Columbus Avenue at around 90th Street, and Mikkel's became a real popular place. They were having a lot of funky music and jazz of all kinds, and I remember Phyllis Simon would perform there. There was a group called Stuff that would play there, and I was playing there. I remember when I was playing there, Miles Davis came into the club, and Miles had a Heineken in his hand, and he parked a yellow Ferrari out on the sidewalk. He had a beautiful yellow, it may have been a Lamborghini, or it was
It's not the same thing
it was
now.
a big, the
It's
one don't
Ferrari,
talk.
Lamborghini. Okay.
Okay, I think it was a yellow Ferrari he had. And Miles said, yeah, he was feeling pretty good, and he walked in and he heard me play, and he sat on the stage right next to where I was pounding my foot with the groove, and there he was, and all that. So it was a popular place. And one night in this place that is 99% inhabited by beautiful folks from the neighborhood, mostly African American folks. In other words, you didn't see too many white Americans in the place, really. And in comes a little party of people headed by the one and only Liza Minnelli.
Ha.
And Liza was feeling pretty good. And she came over and she said, I'd like to do a number. what number? I don't know. It was nice to meet you, Liza. La, la, la. Next thing you know, she's doing an act. She gets up on top of the piano. They put the lid down on the little grand piano, and she went into whatever, I can't remember what it was, but yours truly followed her. She went there, I was able to follow her, and I think she actually did that famous song she did from the movie called Cabaret. And in fact, I heard you do a...
What good is sitting alone in your room? Come hear the music play.
That's Liza Minnelli, I'm telling you right now. Liza Minnelli.
I love Liza.
Well, she tore it up. The people loved her because, this famous star of stage and screen, popular Hollywood individual. Her mother was Judy Garland. She came in there and had a ball, and and I remember she came downstairs to say hello to me, and where we had the musicians' room, and she came down, and the boyfriend at the time, he said, "Don't talk to those people." he didn't like that she was talking to me, and long story, won't go there.
Jealous guy.
I don't know, but something like that. So enough talk for the day.
Yeah, we're approaching the hour.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we might have to.
Cut back. So
Yeah.
that's the end of it. One more time, I want to share a jasmine song. When I was a kid, I smelled jasmine in Montego Bay, and I was
Yes.
listening to the songs that I loved very much, songs that Nat Cole had recorded, and I did several of these, which is going to be the album called Jasmine in Montego Bay, whenever that comes out in a few months from now.
Yes.
The current one is Waurika Hill. After 75 albums, if you might see some of them over there, there's a whole bunch of Monty records. Okay. And
Shall I go for it?
we're going to play a song called, a beloved song, you might remember, Breakfast at Tiffany's. The song is Moon River, Audrey Hepburn, and this song that was written by Henry Mancini, and yours truly, doing a little vocalizing, and the great trumpeter, Arturo Sandoval, Cuban born, so the Cuban and the Jamaican singing Moon
Island.
River and playing the trumpet. And we had Roy Hargrove on the first tune I played, Faith Can Move Mountains. Here is Moon River.
Here we go.
Hit it.
We'll leave you with this one.
You see here that fat bass? Moon River. Well, beautiful people, happy July 4th.
To the extent they don't see the head.
Happy July 4th, safe July 4th, wear the mask, wear the mask, wear the mask. I know some people say don't wear the mask, sure, wear the mask. No doubt about it, that's going to be a savior. Wishing you all the best, until next time, y'all take care, God bless. Bye-bye.
Wherever you're going,
Bye.
On behalf of Katarina too, bye. Arrivederci, right?
Arrivederci.
two drifters off to see the world. There's such a lot of world to see. We're after the same rainbows and waiting round the bend. My huckleberry